Hey everybody, what's going on? So we're going to do a little bit of a fun video for you today, and this is for people in the market for the GFX100S and also for the Hasselblad X1D II. Now these cameras are of course very different in terms of design and also what's inside of them, so I'm not going to do a camera versus camera comparison because the X1D II is using obviously an older sensor, doesn't have image stabilization, doesn't have the 4K video qualities, and of course is lacking a lot of the features that the 100S is or does have. But one thing they do have in common is they both have 80mm medium format lenses. Now, the Hasselblad, the 81.9, was the fastest or one of the fastest lenses in modern lenses, I guess you could say, for medium format until Fujifilm came out with the 81.7. Now, I have seen some questions online is which lens is better? So, now obviously I can't put both lenses on each other's bodies because of different mounts and everything else, but I can shoot the same subject with both of these cameras, 81.9 versus 1.7, to show you how the optical quality of these lenses compares. Which lens is better? Is there a big difference? Is this going to be a deciding factor for you? So now let's go into Lightroom and let's take a look at images from the 81.9 XCD lens from Hasselblad versus the Fujifilm GF 81.7. All right, guys, we're now in Lightroom taking a look at images from the Hasselblad 81.9 versus the Fujifilm 81.7. Now, both of these lenses are really good lenses. So you're going to notice some maybe minute differences, and you may see some things I don't necessarily see, but overall, I have to say that this is one heck of a battle. Anyway, let's look at a couple images here. First off, let's look at the Hasselblad. Now, one of the things you'll notice about the Hasselblad in this test is that the colors are really nice coming out of camera. This has to do with the lens and, of course, also the sensor and the processor inside of it. But case in point, here's a photo of me. This has not been edited at all. And if we zoom in on here, look at the detail that we're seeing here at 50 megapixels. This is bitingly sharp. I love the 3D pop that you have in the background. And I love the skin tones that come out of the Hasselblad. The X1D II, the 907X, and especially this 81.9 lens. This is some of the best, I would say, color science I've seen out of cameras to date. And I'll show you a comparison to the Fujifilm. Now, we were shooting this, of course, in Singapore, where 1 minute it's sunshine, the next it's not. Hence, that's why you got a little bit of glare in my face. But again, you're going to see the resolving power of the 100 megapixel image here. But I would say, if I'm looking at both of these images real quick, I'm thinking I like the 3D pop coming out of the Hasselblad a little bit more than the Fujifilm. I mean, it's ever so slight, but it's something that you can take a notice of, and it definitely does show. Now let me show you another image here of my friend Casey, and this is with the Hasselblad. You can tell right away by the skin tone. A little bit more yellowish into the skin tone, a little bit more natural. What you're seeing out of your naked eye is kind of what you're getting with the camera system. The greens are slightly accentuated out of camera. This is something that I've noticed, especially with the reds in the Hasselblad, but the skin tones are fantastic. Look at the detail coming in here. Just need a moment for it to render. But look at the beads of sweat on his face. The focus here, it's really, really nice. Now here is the Fujifilm. And as you can tell right away, the colors are different. There's a much more of a reddish tone that comes into this. I can adjust this. Let me just tone this down real quick if I can do this on the fly. Let's see if I can do that, or I could just maybe warm up the red a little bit. Yeah, warm up the red a bit here, because it was kind of pushing it more towards an orangish tone. And then if I can bring down the highlights a bit, maybe that'll just sort of balance it out to where you're really similar between these two. Now, of course, you're seeing a little bit more yellow out of the Hasselblad, but this is much better. But case in point, the Fujifilm is a very, very sharp lens, focusing right here on the eye, and it nails it. But you are going to see some purple fringing happening around here on his thumb area, around the metal. The Hasselblad is a little bit more controlled in that regard. You will see a little bit of fringing, but if you notice right here, it's far less than the Fujifilm. Now, again, you know, this could be profile in the camera system or not, but I'm thinking this has more to do with the lens. And this was something that I noticed overall with the Hasselblad versus the Fujifilm, is those subtle corrections are better in the Hasselblad lens than in the Fujifilm 81.7. You know, this is a slightly faster lens, and it's very hard to you know, keep these chromatic aberrations, these purple fringing, color fringing situations happening when you're a very fast lens. But anyway, let's look at this wall for a second here. Now, this is the Fujifilm, and I was just focusing on this area because I wanted to see the textures and the greens. Again, much more red coming out of this. This is the Hasselblad, and this was more to what my eye was seeing, to be frank with you. So again, to each their own. It's easily correctable with the Fujifilm. You just have to dial in the colors a little bit, but out of camera, as raw, I have to give it to the Hasselblad in terms of the color, but in terms of detail as well, I mean, they're really neck and neck. Now here's a couple other images here. This, I think, bamboo branch, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. And this is with the Hasselblad. Again, a little bit more yellowish in the tone. You can see the greens here with the yellow right there. This looks more like what my eye was seeing. The gray bokeh in the background, a little bit of, you see it's, you know, peeking through the green of the trees. So I'm not going to say that there's green fringing around that because there's a lot of blending happening here. But you do see towards the end a little bit of cat's eyes happening here, but in the middle area, a lot more circular. But again, at the point of focus is pin sharp. As a matter of fact, it's to the point where you really can't tell what's 100 megapixels and what's not. And again, this is my screen resolution, and with most people's computers, you might not be able to tell unless you have a very high-end machine. But let's look at the bokeh for a second here. Again, a little bit more circular on these sides over here than the Hasselblad, but it does look a little bit more busier in this section. So I would give it to the Hasselblad being a little bit more controlled in that regard. If you see right here, a little bit less busy. I mean, we are splitting hairs, folks, but if we're here to compare, we're here to have some fun. And pixel peep, I'm going to give it to the Hasselblad a little bit. But in terms of resolution, they're both doing a fantastic job. Here's some stairways here. This is the Hasselblad again. Less on the red tones than we're seeing here on the Fujifilm. But in terms of resolution and sharpness, I mean, they're both pretty much neck and neck. You really wouldn't be able to tell the difference at all. And this is really something that goes to be said about the 100 megapixels versus 50 megapixels. Yes, there is going to be a difference, especially if you're going to crop in. But if you're just going to post images online or seeing it like this, it's going to be hard to notice a difference. Now, here's some other shots that I took of this Basso bike here, and let me just kind of pull this information up so I know exactly what I'm looking at. This is the XCD 80mm f1.9 lens from Hasselblad, and when you nail focus, it's really, really nice. Case in point, I was nailing focus right here on the head tube, and just look at the separation, the bokeh on it. It is beautiful. This is also with the 81.9 as well. The font here is very sharp. If you want to see what it looks like before edit, after edit, before edit, after edit. When you're shooting inside of a shop, and of course the lighting can be a little bit funky, I do want to adjust that. But yeah, as you can see, you're getting a little bit more green hues coming into your Hasselblad images. But now let's take a look at the Fujifilm here for a second here. And this is with the 81.7 at 1.7. Now it is, I have to say, it is pretty sharp where I'm focused at. Let's turn this down. I had this on vibrant, so the blues and the yellows are a little bit more pronounced, so I had to turn that down. That was a mistake that I had in camera, but I'm just showing you in terms of resolution because color can be adjusted. That, yeah, the bokeh is a little bit more busier on the Fujifilm, but again, it's 1.7 versus 1.9. But in terms of sharpness, I would say maybe the Hasselblad on this point, but it's really neck and neck because case in point, I'm focusing right here. This is sharp, this area right here. I mean, I'm happy with it, folks. We're pixel peeping at this point in time, and yeah, it's just one of those things where both of these lenses are really, really good. It just depends on your preference in terms of color and in terms of rendering. Now, I will tell you that my hit rate with the Hasselblad is far less than the Fujifilm. Case in point, here's these turtles that were on this rock, this garden, and this is with the Hasselblad XCD 80mm lens. I mean, I tried to nail focus. I thought I nailed it, but it wasn't quite there. However, when I move over to the Fujifilm, give it a second to render, pum, look at the detail. Look how sharp this is. I can zoom in for days on this. until the point where my screen can't even hold the resolution anymore. But this is really, really beautiful. And that is, of course, the power of the 100 megapixel sensor on this. But again, in terms of color tonality, I would give it to the Hasselblad, because this to me is much more what my eye was seeing versus this. But again, easily corrected. Anyway, let's go to my final thoughts on these lenses. As you can tell from the image quality in Lightroom, this is a battle to the battle. I would say, as I mentioned there, that I think the 81.9 is a little bit more corrected versus the 81.7. Now, there is a price difference between these two lenses. The 81.9 is a much slower focusing lens than the 81.7. But in terms of optical quality, I think I might have to hand it to the 81.9 just because of that bit of correction that I see that is different than this lens. Now, these are very minute differences. Both lenses are fantastic, and I highly recommend if you have the GFX100S, the 50R, the 50S, or the 100, and you're looking for the 80, I think the 80 is a fantastic lens for that mount. But again, we're comparing lens to lens just for fun, mind you. Now, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to get too much into body versus body because that is a personal preference. But I can say that the 100S is slightly lighter than the X1D II with this 81.9. This is a heavy lens from Hasselblad. But as you can tell from the image quality, it's fantastic. It's beautiful. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's kind of a fun little comparison for you guys out there. So don't take it too seriously. There will be naysayers from both sides out there. I get it. Unless you work for Fujifilm or Hasselblad, you don't need to wave the flags too much, guys, okay? We're just, consumers, people that enjoy cameras, and we're just having some fun with this. So, take it with a grain of salt, but it's just for some fun camera entertainment. Anyway, those are my thoughts on these two lenses. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Am I missing something out in this comparison? I probably am. I know I am, because I didn't shoot a whiteboard with graphs on it, nor did I shoot anything static. I went and shot real world subjects, but you never know. There might be some criticism out there. So do let me know. With that, stay safe. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, like this video. It does help out the channel a lot so you can see more of our videos. And with that, I'll chat to you soon. Take care.